if we scrutinize it after the fact, when time is so essential, we could lose businesses. And right now we're arguing over which businesses need it most. With the exception of just very few businesses, most industries across the country are in desperate need. Do we have to start to focus and say, does the federal government need to just take over payroll, create mortgage deferment, or simply say we need to create a national economic holiday until it's safe? Because right now we're bickering over who's suffering more.
I don't think it's bickering. I think it's a legitimate discussion of, again, when we passed, saw that you had the leader of their floor debate on our bill we passed the other day on there saying we could have done this 2 weeks ago. No, we couldn't have. They could have agreed to the additional. They had 250. We brought it up to 480. And when we brought it up to 480, it had $100 billion for hospitals and testing in there, which is essential to our opening up, testing. But we also had $120 billion for smaller businesses, which are getting left in the shade. And that just wasn't right. So it isn't a question of bickering. It's about establishing priorities, and we have differences between our parties. The gentleman that you interviewed, Mr. Brady, he said on the floor of the House, we could have done this 2 weeks ago, except they had extracurricular stuff. Extracurricular stuff, $100 billion for hospitals and testing, $120 billion for small businesses, more in terms of the EIDL loans, which are flying out the door because they're easier to get for businesses. They have a long term and a low interest rate, so they're very appealing. And the grants and aid that never do have to be paid back, in addition to $250 billion more for PPP. So we have to be smart about this. They could have agreed. What they rejected 2 weeks before, they passed unanimously in the Senate and overwhelmingly in bipartisan way in the House. Every bill we have passed has been bipartisan. But we've had to make the case about lower income, smaller businesses, again, women, minority, LGBT. We don't want to prioritize anybody over anybody else because it's about jobs. You know, it's about jobs. No matter where you work, it's about jobs. So if that business needs the infusion to keep people on the job, then that's what this is about. But it also has to not ossify any disparity of access to credit in our country, which does exist. So we want everybody to enjoy the vitality of it all.
And every single dollar passed is desperately needed. But I do want to ask, you had said on Friday that you were disappointed that the banks didn't act as better stewards. My question is twofold. Banks are going to protect themselves because that's what they have to do. And they asked the government to release them of some of their risk review requirements. Because if what the banks did was give loans very quickly to borrowers who they didn't know, if those weren't good loans, those banks would be on the hook months from now. If the government wanted it done differently, why wouldn't the government do it itself? The IRS, they know how to collect our money. They could give the money out.
Well, it was a decision that Secretary of the Treasury made to go through the banks for facilitation, that perhaps it would be faster to do than to go through a SBA, a Small Business Administration process. I don't want banks to be made villains in this. They are facilitators, and this should be something that we go forward with in a very positive way. It is interesting, though, that they make a lot of money off of it, and therefore it could affect their behavior in all of it. But what I had said is, with the fact that the SBA has kissed this loan, there is no risk. There is no risk. And as well as the Fed enabling them to not have this count. I'm sorry?
If I may, the reason for the delay, the banks need to do a risk review process. After they do that, they then go to the SBA. One of the main reasons for the holdup, banks didn't have to do a very long risk review for clients that they already knew. That's one of the reasons it went so quickly. For new borrowers, it took some more time. So they are on the hook before they go to the SBA. Those banks lived through this in 2008. They didn't make good decisions, and they paid for it after. If they did that again, they'd get annihilated.
Well, I would say that in 2008, they were part of the problem. I don't see that this time. But let me say that that's why it was hard to understand why our Republican colleagues were not embracing our initiative of $60 billion that would go to community development financial institutions. So those institutions who know the neighborhood, who know the community, know the customers, know the businesses, know the culture, would be able to make loans, smaller loans, into the community and alleviate some of that from the banks. I thought it was really something that they would welcome because, therefore, those who know that community better would be meeting their needs.
Without a doubt.
So that's why I'm so pleased that we got that.
Me too. Will that $60 billion, will they get to go first when the portal opens up again? Will they get to go before the big banks to make sure the money goes to the small borrowers?
Well, this is, it's like two different funds, and the secretary has been working very hard, in my view. When I talked to him about it, we're working it so that these portals or whatever are for that community. So it's not a question of going fast. The 250 is already going to the PPP. This is additional and specific to that community, but also $50 billion in EIDL loans, the emergency injury loans, and that is $50 billion leveraged to over $300 billion in loans. And that is a very popular program. No matter how big you are or how small you are, people like the long-term, low interest and the immediacy of getting that. So that was a very important part of this as well. And that's an SBA loan, so that goes fast. And then we have the grants that every small business can apply for. But you have said it very clearly. Whether it's the restaurants, the hospitality industry, there's some that just aren't a fit, and we have to see why. Is it number of employees? Is it length of time? Is it in terms of nonprofits, the 501c3, 4, 6. Let's see how we can expand this, because we could actually, with the combination of all of these things, be reaching maybe 90-some% of the small businesses in America. And that would be a wonderful thing because, again, the entrepreneurship, the vitality, the courage, the optimism to start a small business, and then people have them for a number of years, and then just you see their hopes just fade because of something so beyond their control.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.